When you hear the word leader, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably someone at the top, right? Someone with authority, control, maybe a corner office. Our culture gives us a very clear picture of what power is supposed to look like. But what if that entire picture is upside down? Today, we're going to dig into a totally different kind of power, a model of leadership that pretty much challenges everything we think we know.
This quote, it gets right to the heart of the whole thing. It's a paradox, isn't it? The idea that real influence isn't about clawing your way to the top, but choosing to go to the back of the line. That greatness isn't found in the climb, but in the descent, into service. That's the core idea we're unpacking.
So let's frame this with two simple symbols. On one side, you've got what we'll call the world's ladder. It's all about control, status, and competition. It's a race to the top. But on the other side, we have the kingdom's towel. This is a completely different model, one built on service, humility, and community. This is the fundamental clash we're going to be exploring.
Now, you might be thinking, oh, servant leadership, that's one of those modern business buzzwords. But it's not. The sources we're pulling from today argue that its roots go way, way back. To the very beginning, actually. To the character of God Himself. So to really get this model, we've got to start there.
Think about it. The very first act of leadership we see in the Bible is creation. And it wasn't a show of force or dominance. It was an act of pure, overflowing generosity. God created life and beauty not for Himself, but for His creatures. Right from the get-go, this sets the precedent. True leadership begins with giving, not with taking.
And this wasn't some kind of distant, abstract leadership either. No, the creation story shows us the God who gets involved. He relates, He communicates, He serves, He shares, and He blesses. It was active, it was personal, and it laid out the blueprint for a leadership that's defined by its goodness. You know, this idea is so central that in the Old Testament, the word leader is actually way less common than the word servant. Get this, the title servant of the Lord wasn't an insult. It was the highest honor you could get. It was a title that guys like Moses and David proudly held. They got it. Their main identity wasn't ruler, it was servant.
Okay, so what does this actually look like in the real world? What happens when a leader embraces this posture versus one who completely rejects it? Well, the Bible gives us some really sharp case studies. Let's look at a tale of two very different kings.
But before we meet the kings, let's just lock in this definition. A servant leader isn't just someone who, does acts of service from time to time. It's deeper than that. It's about their very nature. It's a posture of the heart that instinctively defaults to serving God and serving other people. It's not just a strategy you use, it's who you are.
And this shows you the consequences, clear as day. On one side, you have King Rehoboam. He chose dominance, he listened to his arrogant friends, laid heavier burdens on his people, and what happened? He lost half his kingdom. On the other side, you have Nehemiah. He chose service. He listened to God, shared the people's burden, and worked right alongside them. And he rebuilt an entire nation. The difference wasn't skill, it was the heart. And all of this, of course, points us to the ultimate example, the one all these other stories were just foreshadowing. To truly, fully understand servant leadership, we have to look at the life and the teachings of Jesus, who is framed as the complete fulfillment of this entire model.
Jesus' whole life was just a total rejection of the world's ladder. He consistently refused to rule by force or intimidation. When his disciples were literally arguing about which one of them was the greatest, he just flipped the whole idea of greatness on its head. He told them, "The greatest among you will be your servant." And then he proved he meant it by getting on his knees and washing their dirty feet.
Prophecies in the book of Isaiah actually lay out this servant's path hundreds of years earlier. It's like a four-step journey. First, the servant is chosen and gentle. Second, he's faithful, not famous. Third, he's committed to suffer for others. And fourth, and this is key, he's exalted through that sacrifice. The sequence is everything. Service and suffering have to come first.
Okay, so if that's the model, how does it get passed on? Well, a true servant leader doesn't just collect a bunch of followers. They create other leaders. See, the goal isn't to build a pyramid with you sitting at the top. The goal is to launch a movement that spreads way beyond you. Let's see how this actually works.
One of the best, and honestly, one of the most overlooked examples of this is a guy in the New Testament named Barnabas. His name literally means son of encouragement, and man, did he live up to it. He is the perfect case study of a leader who uses their influence not to build up their own platform, but to launch other people into their destiny.
Barnabas's whole method was simple. He built people. He vouched for the outcast, Paul, when nobody else would touch him. He picked up and restored a young guy named Mark after he'd failed pretty badly. His focus was never on his own projects or his reputation. It was always about using his influence to develop the potential he saw in other people.
And what Barnabas did, well, it's part of this incredible chain reaction. It starts with personal discipleship, just investing in someone. That grows into mentoring them, which leads to empowering them. And that culminates in sending them out to go and do the exact same thing for others. This is how the early church grew so fast. It wasn't a top-down corporation. It was a multiplying movement of empowered servants.
So, we've looked at the theology, we've looked at the history, we've looked at the examples. Now for this last part, we're going to turn the mirror back on ourselves. We're going to take these big ideas and figure out how they apply to our own lives, whether you have a formal leadership title or not.
This definition really ties it all together. It's the act of influencing people to accomplish God's purposes for God's glory, and, this is the critical part, in God's way. The big insight here is that the how is just as important as the what. You can't use the world's ladder to do the kingdom's work.
And this leads to a massive shift in how you see everything. You stop seeing yourself as the owner of the project or the business or the family. Instead, you start seeing yourself as a steward. The mission, the people, the resources, none of it is yours to possess. It's a sacred trust. It's a gift from God that you've been asked to manage faithfully.
So that brings us to our first challenge question. I want you to honestly ask yourself, in what areas of your leadership, at work, at home, anywhere, are you tempted to protect your position instead of empowering others? Where are you more focused on protecting your turf than on developing your people?
Okay, here's the second question, and this one is a real gut check. Just think about the people you influence. When you walk into a room, do people feel lighter because you're there, or heavier? Do they feel seen and encouraged, or do they feel burdened and a little bit drained?
And finally, the ultimate test. Forget about what you intend to do, or what your job description says. If a total stranger followed you around for 1 week, based purely on your actions, what would they see? Would they see the humility, the courage, and the sacrificial love of Jesus in the way you lead? We're going to end right where we started, with this powerful summary. In a world that is obsessed with job titles and climbing the ladder, this whole framework offers a radically different way to measure success. It suggests that the greatest legacy isn't about what you accomplished, but about who you built up. And the highest title you can ever hold is simply servant of the Lord.